Well, here with me is Daisy Cooper, the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats. So, very good morning to you. And as we were just saying there in our headlines, a decisive win for the Liberal Democrats in Somerton and Frome. So, how important a win was that for you?
It's a very important win, and we're absolutely over the moon. I think Sarah Dyke is going to make a fantastic MP for Somerton and Frome. And after the win we had in Tiverton and Honiton last year and good local election results in both Somerset and Devon, I think we can now say with absolute certainty that the Lib Dems are back in the West Country.
OK, well, the Conservative MP, David Warburton, stood down amid allegations of sexual harassment, which he denied, and drug use. Was that a large part of the reason why people wanted to see the Tories out of that seat? It was really about an individual rather than a positive vote for the Liberal Democrats.
Well, actually, what we heard on the doorsteps was that the fundamental reasons why people were voting for the Lib Dems was because they're sick to the back teeth of this Conservative government. They feel completely abandoned at a time when they're facing a real cost of living crisis. People are struggling with their mortgages, with childcare, with everything else. And people are feeling the NHS crisis as well. They're struggling to see a GP. So those were the two main reasons that people said they were going to vote for the Liberal Democrats. But of course, the fact that many people had felt like they'd been left unrepresented for an entire year was definitely a key factor for some people.
And the winning candidate, Sarah Dyke, thanked Labour voters and Green voters who lent their votes. How important was tactical voting, and how important do you think it'll be in a general election?
Well, tactical voting is very important in every election for every political party. You know, I was elected in 2019 in St Albans. I had won over the support and votes of lifelong Conservative voters, but I also had to ask Labour, former Labour and Green voters to vote for me tactically. And so it worked in St Albans, it's worked again in Somerton and Frome. And for as long as we have a broken electoral system, first past the post, we have to ask people across the country to vote tactically, as well as voting positively in some places, particularly for hard-working local champions.
Given that there were some Labour voters who were clearly happy to lend their vote to the Liberal Democrats in this by-election, how do you feel about some kind of cooperation with Labour going into the general election?
We don't need any formal cooperation. There haven't been any deals and there won't be any deals. And I've said time and time again that we don't need them because the voters will make up their own minds as to who they want to vote for. What we've just seen in Somerton and Frome is that there were many people who voted very positively and proactively for Sarah Dyke because she's so well known in the community. She's a hard-working local councillor. They wanted to vote proactively for the Liberal Democrats. But we did also have to ask people to vote tactically for us as well. Every political party has to do that across the country, and we will have to keep doing that for as long as we have this broken electoral system.
So tell us why you're ruling out coalition. Are you still feeling bruised after the last coalition that you went into with the Tories? Is that what it's about?
As far as we're concerned, our focus is entirely on trying to win as many Liberal Democrat MPs as possible at the time of the next general election. And I've said before, if I was an athlete, which I'm not, but if I was an athlete, I would say this is the race of my life. It's the race of our lives for the Lib Dems. There are so many problems in this country right now. People say to me on the doorstep that everything is broken, nothing works anymore. People really want to see the back of this Conservative government, and that's why we've got a sole focus on getting as many Lib Dem MPs elected as possible, and we'll stay focused on that right up until 10 p.m. on the day of the next general election.
The Tories would say, give Rishi Sunak a chance. He's not been in office that long. He's got 5 pledges. Give him time to meet them, because they say those are the issues that people care about.
Rishi Sunak is failing on every single one of his pledges. Inflation hasn't been halved and people are still struggling with the cost of living crisis. Liberal Democrats were the first party to call for the windfall tax, and even now we are still having to ask the government to close the loopholes in that windfall tax. There is a lot more the government could be doing and they're not doing it. NHS waiting lists are now going up rather than coming down. It's very clear that the government doesn't have a handle on that either. By contrast, the Liberal Democrats, as I say, continue to campaign for more support for people by increasing that windfall tax and closing the loopholes. We're calling for 8,000 more GPs to be in the system so people can see a GP when they need to. That's why people are voting for the Lib Dems.
But all politicians would admit these things take time, and the Tories would say, just look at this week's inflation figures, they're starting to make things happen.
I think people look at the Conservative government and they are tired. They're sick to the back teeth of this Conservative government. There's been Prime Minister after Prime Minister after Prime Minister. There's been years of sleaze and scandal. It is a government that cannot get ahead of any of the issues facing this country, whatever those issues are. And that's why people are turning away from the Conservatives, and lifelong Conservative voters are now saying that they're going to vote for the Liberal Democrats.
OK, Daisy Cooper, we appreciate your time. Thanks very much indeed for coming in.